Welcome to Quantum Cracks, the channel where we unravel the mysteries and theories that crack the fabric of reality. In today's episode, we dive into the fascinating theory of the Boltzmann brain. What if everything you know, every memory, every sensation, every relationship is a lie? Not because someone tricked you, but because you never actually existed, and you do not exist right now. Welcome to the fascinating theory of the Boltzmann brain. In the strange intersection of physics and philosophy, few ideas are as provocative or unsettling as the Boltzmann brain hypothesis. It's named after 19th century physicist Ludwig Boltzmann. This paradox emerges from thermodynamics, cosmology, and quantum mechanics. Boltzmann was obsessed with entropy, the idea that the universe tends to move from order to disorder. But sometimes order can appear spontaneously, like a fleeting swirl in the chaos. In an infinite universe, it is theoretically possible for low entropy fluctuations to create pockets of order. Not just stars or planets, but something far stranger, something sentient, alive, aware. In Boltzmann's original thinking, this was a way to explain why we observe a low entropy past. But modern interpretations took the logic further. If small fluctuations are more likely than large ones, then statistically, it is far more probable for a single conscious brain to form out of chaos, having fabricated memories of a life it never lived, than for the entire observable universe to arise as a coherent whole. In other words, it is more probable that we are the random and spontaneous memories of a dismembered brain floating around in space, than the organic evolution of intelligence on a life-supporting planet. Let this sink in for a moment. This idea grew legs as cosmologists explored eternal inflation, the concept that new pockets of space are constantly inflating into existence. In such a vast multiverse, every rare event, including spontaneous brain formation, happens not just once, but infinitely often. This hypothetical brain is known as a Boltzmann brain, a fleeting, self-aware structure arising from random fluctuations in a high-entropy cosmos. The Boltzmann brain believes it has a history and believes it exists in a structured universe, but it does not. It is a blip, a cosmic hallucination. This could mean that your family, friends, and memories are just synthetic memories in a brain that will vanish in a flash. In a chilling analogy, imagine waking up in a hospital bed with no recollection of how you got there, but with perfect clarity about your childhood, your career, your relationships, and then you are told all of that was fabricated 5 seconds ago. This is not just philosophical musing. It is a genuine challenge in modern cosmology. As Sean Carroll explains in his 2010 book, From Eternity to Here, if your model of the universe predicts that Boltzmann brains vastly outnumber real observers, then that model should be rejected. It leads to absurd conclusions, like you being a disembodied mind floating through nothing, hallucinating this very video. But is this such an absurd conclusion? Philosophers like Sean Carroll, David Wallace, and Nick Bostrom have grappled with the implications. If your cosmological model makes it more likely that you are a Boltzmann brain than a biologically evolved being, then your reasoning is undercut by its own logic. In other words, if you are a Boltzmann brain, how could you trust any belief you hold, including your belief in physics, evidence, and reason itself? This is a self-defeating loop known as cognitive instability. David Wallace, in his work on Evereshian quantum mechanics, emphasizes that any observer-centric theory that leads to internal contradiction is deeply problematic. In his view, the Boltzmann brain is not just an epistemic threat, it is an existential one. In 2025, philosopher Adam Ilga from Princeton formalized this idea in his paper titled Boltzmann Brains and Cognitive Instability. Ilga explored the paradox that arises when you seriously consider that you might be a Boltzmann brain. His key argument: if you believe you are a Boltzmann brain, then you should not trust your own reasoning. But if you should not trust your own reasoning, then you should not believe you are a Boltzmann brain either. A paradox, wrapped in logic, wrapped in uncertainty. Ilga built a Bayesian model, which is essentially a mathematical framework for reasoning under uncertainty, showing that although the Boltzmann brain hypothesis undermines itself, it does not force you into epistemic despair, meaning you do not need to undermine the very process of knowing. You can still assign it a probability, But any theory that leads to such instability should be viewed with extreme skepticism. This insight mirrors a broader theme in philosophical epistemology. If a belief system undermines its own justification mechanisms, it collapses under its own weight. Physicists have not ignored this. In 2021, Alum et al. Published a paper with an intriguing proposal. Perhaps vacuum decay, which is the spontaneous creation of black holes or inflating regions, could prevent Boltzmann brains from dominating. They showed that in many versions of the scale factor cutoff measure, which is a technique used to count observers in eternal inflation. The rate at which black holes nucleate, meaning how frequently black holes could spontaneously form in a vacuum through quantum fluctuations, exceeds the rate at which Boltzmann brains would appear. If Boltzmann brains require a minimum energy or mass threshold, then spontaneous black holes, which form more easily, can reset regions before Boltzmann brains emerge. Another promising idea is called the phenomenon of up-tunneling, in which a region of space fluctuates into a higher energy vacuum, potentially birthing a new inflating universe. These events occur faster than Boltzmann brain formation in many models, tipping the scale toward evolved observers like us. Their conclusion: if vacuum decay processes are active and efficient, then the universe might be self-regulating against the dominance of Boltzmann brains. This provides not only physical reassurance, but philosophical relief in that there exists a mechanism which restores cognitive stability to our models. The Boltzmann brain hypothesis echoes other mind-bending theories. For example, consider simulation theory, proposed in a modern form by philosopher Nick Bostrom. If advanced civilizations can run ancestor simulations, then most observers would be simulated ones. Again, more fake minds than real ones. Or take the classic brain in a vet scenario. What if an evil scientist had placed your brain in a tank and was feeding it stimuli to simulate a normal life? The Boltzmann brain is not science fiction, but rather it is science's version of these unsettling ideas, grounded in thermodynamics and quantum cosmology. What unites all of them is a question of trust. Can you believe what your mind tells you about the world? This is not just about strange physics. It's about what it means to know, to believe, to be. The Boltzmann brain hypothesis pushes the boundaries of epistemology, ontology, and scientific realism. It challenges physicists to build models that are not only mathematically elegant, but also cognitively stable. As philosopher Nick Bostrom puts it in his simulation arguments in Existential risk work, sometimes the scariest possibilities are not that the universe ends, but that we never really began in the first place. So let's ask the question that brought you here. Are you a Boltzmann brain? Are your memories real? Is your past continuous? Or are you a flicker, a brief arrangement of particles in an indifferent void? If you were a Boltzmann brain, would you ever know? The truth is, we may never know for sure. But as long as our cosmological theories continue to predict more evolved beings than phantom minds, we can hold on to a little hope. In the face of such profound uncertainty, we are left with a choice: to retreat into the comfort of our perceived reality, or to embrace the mystery and continue our relentless pursuit of knowledge. Maybe you are real, maybe you are not. But if you are still watching and still thinking, then perhaps for now, you are safe. The Boltzmann brain hypothesis beckons us to question everything we think we know and to marvel at the infinite possibilities that may lie beyond our current understanding. So I think I've just described a Boltzmann brain. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see more content like this, then definitely consider subscribing. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.